Om Jnanati Manasya Jnanjana Slakya Saksurmritam Yena Tasmai.
Recording in progress.
Shichaitanya Manobistam Stapitam Yena Bhuttane Svamrupakadamyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeyam Shiyuda Padakam Nam Shiyom Vaishnavamsha Shiyupam Jagajatam Sagana Ragnotam Pitam Tam Sadhivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Sakrishna Chayadeva Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lita Shivshakam Vitam Sha Hey Krishna Karuna Sinudina Vanodhyat Pate Gopesha Gopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namaskita Tapta Kanchana Gauri Radhe Navanashve Vishavana Siddhadevi Pranamama Haripriya Farha Kalpta Visha Kripa Shinve Visha Patram Panabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namo Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskatyai Satarani Srila Prabhupada Ki. So today we will discuss Canto 5, Chapter 8, verses 16 to 31, the second part of the chapter on the character of Bharat Maharaj. We heard the story of Bharat Maharaj, how he became attracted to the deer, attracted to protect deer. And the next verses will show is how we became overly attached to the deer and forgot is to think about Krishna or Vishnu during his sacrifices and his sadhana. So when he went to the forest and he couldn't find the deer, then his mind became filled with lamentation. So text 16. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Bharat Maharaj would think, alas, the deer is now helpless. I'm now very unfortunate, and my mind is like a cunning hunter, for it is always filled with cheating, propensity, and cruelty. The deer has put its faith in me, just as a good man who has a natural interest in good behavior forgets the misbehavior of a cunning friend and puts faith in him. Although I've proved faithless, will this deer return and place its faith in me? So he thinks, Bharat Maharaj thinks, it's my fault that the deer has left. I've not taken care of the deer well enough. It has gone away. And he's questioning, will it come back? Will it come back looking at me again with his unblinking eyes? To text 17. So we will hear about how he enters more deep into illusion. Alas, is it possible that I shall again see this animal protected by the Lord and fearless of tigers and other animals? Shall I again see him wandering in the garden eating soft grass? So this is illusion. But the mind does this kind of things. The mind has only two businesses: accept things and reject things. And it is accepting and rejecting irrationally. Its overriding business is to keep one in the material world. That's the business of our mind. Its mind has become feverish thinking about this deer, but it has nothing to do with the deer at all. This is the material world. Atmavan Manyate Jagat. We are thinking that we are dealing with relationships with other people, but we are really only dealing with our mind. And the material world will very kindly not cooperate. That's the reality. Text 18. I do not know, but the deer might have been eaten by a wolf or a dog, or by the boars that flock together, or the tiger who travels alone. Text 19. Alas, when the sun rises, all auspicious things begin. Unfortunately, they have not begun for me. The sun god is the Vedas personified, but I am bereft of all Vedic principles. The sun god is now setting, yet the poor animal who trusted in me since its mother died has not returned. So he thinks there is nothing auspicious for me. My deer is not here. Text 20. That deer is exactly like a prince. That's what he's thinking. When will it return? When will it again display its personal activities, which are so pleasing? When will it again pacify a wounded heart like mine? I certainly must have no pious assets, otherwise the deer would have returned by now. So his mind is really going mad here. Text 21. Alas, the small deer, while playing with me and seeing me feigning meditation with closed eyes, would circumambulate me due to anger arising from love, and it would fearfully touch me with the points of its soft horns, which felt like drops of water. So that shows here, seeing me feigning meditation. So while doing his rituals and his seva, he was simply thinking of this deer, not on Vishnu or Krishna. Srila Prabhupada points out in the purport that this means his downfall was coming. He was falling from spiritual life. 22. When I placed all the sacrificial ingredients on the kusha grass, the deer, when playing, would touch the grass with its teeth and thus pollute it. When I chastised the deer by pushing it away, it would immediately become fearful and sit down motionless, exactly like the son of a saintly person. Thus it would stop its play. So he was thinking, how wonderful is this deer? It's exactly behaving like a saintly person. The purport. Bharat Maharaj was constantly thinking of the activities of the deer, forgetting that such meditation and diversion of attention was killing his progress in spiritual achievement. So yes, attachment and aversion, raga and vesha, that is prominent in the mind of someone in immaterial consciousness. But attachment and aversion are the same. We need to have our mind focused on Krishna and not absorbed in this good and bad, like and dislike. Text 23. After speaking like a madman in this way, because these previous verses show how his mind completely went wild, that like a madman he was speaking. So Maharaj Bharat got up and went outside. Seeing the footprints of the deer on the ground, he praised the footprints out of love, saying, "Oh, unfortunate Bharat, your austerities and penances are very insignificant compared to the penance and austerity undergone by this earth planet. Due to the earth's severe penances, the footprints of this deer, which are small, beautiful, most auspicious and soft, are imprinted on the surface of this fortunate planet. This series of footprints show a person like me, who am bereaved due to loss of the deer, how the animal has passed through the forest, and how can I regain my lost wealth. By these footprints, this land has become a proper place for the Brahmins who desire heavenly planets or liberation to execute sacrifices to the demigods." 24. Maharaj Bharat continued to speak like a madman. Seeing above his head the dark marks on the rising moon, which resembled a deer, he said, "Can it be that the moon, who is so kind to an unhappy man, might also be kind upon my deer, knowing that it has strayed from home and has become motherless? This moon has given the deer shelter near itself just to protect it from the fearful attacks of a lion." 25. After perceiving the moonshine, Maharaj Bharat continued speaking like a crazy person. He said, "The dear sun was so submissive and dear to me that due to its separation I am feeling separation from my own son. Due to the burning fever of this separation I am suffering as if inflamed by a forest fire. My heart, which is like the lily of the land, is now burning. Seeing me so distressed, the moon is certainly splashing its shining nectar upon me, just as a friend throws water on another friend who has high fever. In this way, the moon is bringing me happiness." It's 24, 25. So extreme was his attachment that he was seeing the deer in the moon. And he made very poetic statements, but not spiritual. That takes 26. Sukadev Goswami continued, "My dear king, in this way, Bharat Maharaj was overwhelmed by an uncontrollable desire which was manifest in the form of the deer. Due to the fruitive results of his past deeds, he fell down from mystic yoga, austerity and worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If it were due to his past fruitive activity, how could he have been attracted to the deer after giving up the association of his own son and family, considering them stumbling blocks on the path of spiritual life? How could he show such uncontrollable affection for a deer? This was definitely due to his past karma. That is what Sukadev Goswami said. It was due to his past karma. The king was so engrossed in petting and maintaining the deer that he fell down from his spiritual activities. In due course of time, insurmountable death, which is compared to a venomous snake, enters the hole created by mouse, situated itself before him. So, Sukadev Goswami is speaking to Maharaj Pariksit, and this is also a warning to Maharaj Pariksit not to be attached to anything other than Krishna when he's going to leave this world. So, not that one should not do one's duty. One should do one's duty for Krishna and others in relationship to Krishna. A mouse feels secure in a hole, but when a snake enters that hole, there is for the mouse no place to escape, so death is certain. So death began to stalk Bharat Maharaj. When death stalks, there is no escape. The consciousness we have at that time, that is our consciousness. The warning is to be extremely careful, to be attached to Krishna, and to become detached from anything else than Krishna. This warning is given to Maharaj Pariksit and to any one of us. But Krishna is very kind, as nothing is ever lost. The life after his next life, yes, he will have learned his lesson. He will practically not interact with the material world. He was so cautious, fearful, but determined to keep his conscience focused on Krishna. He did not interact with his pious father and his pious mother. He just kept his internal focus on Krishna. He learned his lesson once and for all. He was not going to go backwards. That is what happens. We either learn our lesson by listening to the Shastra, by listening to this Bhagavatam, and accepting the conclusions and acting accordingly, or we learn our lesson in a more difficult way by having to experience everything. Learn the intelligent way or the less intelligent way. Two ways of learning. We will learn it, but to save ourselves from difficulty and suffering, we must become attached to Krishna. In the last verse of the purport, Srila Prabhupada speaks about the punishment that is awarded to devotees. Such punishment is only for a short period, and it is not due to past karma. It may appear to be due to past karma, but it is offered to rectify the devotee and bring him to pure devotional service. So I repeat, such punishment is only for a short period. So Krishna may do it to rectify us. But it's not due to our past karma for devotees. That's what Prabhupada says. It may appear to be due to past karma, but it is offered to rectify the devotee and bring him to pure devotional service. So Krishna may use your past karma to rectify you. Because Krishna decides what reaction you are going to get when that. So text 27. In the purpose Srila Prabhupada speaks about, Goswamis living in Vrindavan who purposely commit some sinful activity are born in the bodies of dogs, monkeys and tortoises in that holy land. Thus they take on these lower life forms for a short while, and after giving up those animal bodies, they are again promoted to the spiritual world. That's what Prabhupada says. Interesting. The same principle is there. At the time of death, the king saw that the deer was sitting by his side, exactly like his own son, and was lamenting his death. Actually, the mind of the king was absorbed in the body of the deer. And consequently, like those bereft of Krishna consciousness, he left the world, the deer and his material body, and acquired the body of a deer. However, there was one advantage. Although he lost his human body and received the body of a deer, he did not forget the incidents of his past lives. So, he had still higher consciousness. Otherwise, you cannot remember that in the body of a deer. So, this is what it means to be in the material world for each and every one of us. Everyone has their time. So this is the reality in the material world. As devotees, we should take this very seriously and place our attachments in the right place. When the center is established properly, then everything will work properly. The deer was lamenting his death. The king was absorbed in the body of the deer. It was Krishna's special arrangement that he did not forget the incidents of his past life. Now, text 21. Although in the body of a deer, Bharat Maharaj, due to his rigid devotional service in his past life, could understand the cause of his birth in that body. Considering his past and present life, he constantly repented his activities, speaking in the following way. So we see also Ajamil, we will see in the next canto. After hearing the conversation between the Yamadutas and the Vishnudutas, he did not go immediately to Hardwar, but he lamented first for his past activities. Lamentation and repentance have a very important place. We should lament and repent our faults. So this is one process of beating the mind with broomsticks. Lamenting means criticizing what I've done. Repenting means wishing that I've never done such a thing. So in the last two verses of this chapter, Srila Prabhupada tells us to be very careful. From the purport of text 30, all the members of the Krishna consciousness movement should be very careful to execute their spiritual duties, and that will be beneficial for the devotees and anyone who comes in contact. So by the mercy of the Lord and by his bhakti, his devotional activities continued on the soul level. That it continued. No interruption. So text 29. In the body of a deer, Bharat Maharaj began to lament. What misfortune! I have fallen from the path of the self-realized. I gave up my real sons, wife and home to advance the spiritual life, and I took shelter in a solitary place in the forest. I became self-controlled and self-realized, and I engaged constantly in devotional service, hearing, thinking, chanting, or worshipping and remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. I was successful in my attempt so much that my mind was always absorbed in devotional service. However, due to my personal foolishness, my mind again became attached, this time to a deer. Now I have obtained the body of a deer and have fallen far from my devotional practices. So yes, his illusion is now gone. Now I have got the body of a deer, and I'm more far away from my goal. That text 30. Although Bharat Maharaj received the body of a deer by constant repentance, he became completely detached from all material things. He did not disclose these things to anyone, but he left his mother deer in a place known as Kalanjar mountain, where he was born. He went again to the forest of Salagram and to the ashram of Pulastya and Pulaha, where he was before. 31. Remaining in that ashram, the great King Bharat was now very careful not to fall victim to bad association. Without disclosing his past to anyone, he remained in that ashram and ate dry leaves only. So he was not exactly alone, for he had the association of the Supersoul. In this way he waited for death in the body of a deer. Bathing in that holy place, he finally gave up that body. And then we will hear of his next life in the next chapter. Purport of 31. Holy places like Vrindavan, Hathway, Prayag and Jagannath Puri are especially meant for the execution of devotional service. Vrindavan specifically is the most exalted and preferred holy place for Vaishnava devotees of Lord Krishna, who are aspiring to return back to Godhead, the Vaikuntha planets. There are many devotees in Vrindavan who regularly bathe in the Yamuna, and this cleanses all the contamination of the material world by constantly chanting and hearing the holy names and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. One certainly becomes purified and becomes a fit candidate for liberation. However, if one purposefully falls victim to sense gratification, he has to be punished, at least for one lifetime. It's better to avoid that. So I want to speak now for a few minutes, because I must say that Pujam Prabhu and Mother Narayani will discuss this chapter. They did it in 1 hour, the entire chapter. But here it's scheduled 4 hours. That's a little difficult to fill 4 hours. But therefore this chapter is finished now. But I want to speak about the summary. I want to give a summary of causes of fall down. So important things we can learn from this chapter. First lesson to learn. Don't neglect your duties in devotional service. Always chant your rounds, follow the principles, do service, and hear every day the Bhagavatam. These are our main duties. Should never give them up and do them every day without interruption. Because those who stop chanting for some times, I heard it's very difficult to come back, even to 16 rounds. It's really difficult. Don't give it up, never. Don't neglect your duties in devotional service. The second lesson to learn. Do not sacrifice your spiritual practice for the bodily comfort of others. That's a warning. That if you are a father or a mother, you have to take care of the child. But you don't sacrifice your spiritual practice just for the care of the child. It must be balanced. And no overly attachment. Never think it's your child. They are Krishna's children, under your care. It's your duty to take care of them. It should be done without too much attachment. Devotees, we have here in Radhadesh, and there's a senior devotee here, and a Prabhupada disciple, and a few months ago our grandchild died in a car accident. So that's a shock even if you may be advanced. But if you are advanced, you come through it. But these things happen. There is no guarantee that your son or daughter will live longer than you. Every moment something can happen. This is a horrible place. So we should not be overly attached, but do our service for Krishna. Take care of them. These are Krishna's part and parcels. Try to bring them to Krishna consciousness. So do not sacrifice your spiritual practice for the bodily comfort of others. And then the third is misplaced compassion. Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 1st verse, he writes, one should know where to place his compassion. When compassion should be applied. Not misplaced compassion is compassion for the material. And don't describe your own medicine. Don't become your own doctor. Follow the Shastra, Guru Shastra, Sadhu Shastra. Another aspect is, if one willfully gives up his spiritual life, then Krishna says, I will punish you if you willfully do it. I will punish you. So then there awaits punishment by the Lord himself if you willfully gives up your spiritual life. That's clear from the purpose of Prabhupada here. We may go back to complete this summary. May go back to text 8 in this verse, in this chapter. Text 8, the purport. Yeah, so that was an important purport. And that's very practical, what Prabhupada says here. From this we can understand that we have to be very cautious in executing our spiritual duties by observing the rules and regulations and regularly chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. If we neglect doing this, we will eventually fall down. We must rise early in the morning, bath, attend Mangal Arti, worship the deities, chant the Hare Krishna mantra, study the Vedic literature, and follow all the rules prescribed by the acharyas and the spiritual master. So we must do that every day. If we deviate from this process, we may fall down, even though we may be very highly advanced, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. Chahya dana tapakarmana chahyam karmam evatat chahya dama tapashiva pavanani manishinam. Acts of sacrifice, charity and penance are not to be given up, but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity and penance purify the great souls. Even if one is in the renounced order, that he should never give up the regulative principles. He should worship the deity and give his time and life to the service of Krishna. He should also continue following the rules and regulations of austerity and penance. These things cannot be given up. One should not think oneself very advanced because one has accepted the sannyas order. The activities of Bharat Maharaj should be carefully studied for one's spiritual advancement. Srila Prabhupada. So if we deviate from the process given by the previous acharyas, we may fall down, even if we are very advanced, Srila Prabhupada says. So the path of devotional service is like a razor's edge. We must be very careful in the execution of our devotional service. From verse 9, Bharat Maharaj is making excuses or arguments to justify or rationalize of what he is doing. So it brings him to a madness of mind. He says, this deer is taking shelter of me. It has no one else. It still has the Kshatriya mentality of protection. So even Yudhishthira Maharaj had this mood. When at the end of his life, a dog took shelter of him. So we can read that in the Mahabharata, that Pandavas were walking to the north and one after another left his body. But then Yudhishthira Maharaj, he went to the Himalayas, but a dog took shelter of him, and he allowed the dog with him to go with him, and he went in the mountains in the Himalayas, and there Indra was waiting for him. To bring him to the heavenly planet. And Yudhishthira Maharaj said, I cannot go with you unless this dog can also go, because he has taken shelter of me. Anyway, but finally it were the demigods who were testing him. But that's a Kshatriya mentality. So Yudhishthira Maharaj thought that Dhritarashtra would not survive in the forest. When Vidura came to speak to Dhritarashtra after the Battle of Kurukshetra, trying to inspire him to leave the family and go to the forest for spiritual advancement and to get at least the Brahma Bhuta realization. When Maharaj Parikshit heard that they left, he became very concerned. The Srila Prabhupada makes that point here. He says, this is misplaced compassion. It is impossible to elevate a deer to spiritual consciousness. Now we will have questions at the end. It's just 10 minutes or something. So it's impossible to elevate the deer to the spiritual consciousness. You can't help the material body. So sometimes devotees keep animals. Be careful. If you want to help, then you must follow the regulations. You must follow yourself the spiritual process. If you become concerned with the bodily comforts of others, you may fall down. Even a sannyasi feels compassion. Therefore he preaches. Don't give up your personal interest to protect a surrendered soul. Don't give up your personal spiritual interest. That's not it. Don't give up your spiritual life to protect a surrendered soul. Mothers may have that feeling. I sacrifice my own spiritual life for my child. But don't do it. Don't do welfare activities to improve the material condition. And because it becomes a distraction. And distraction is a cause of fall down, inattention, material attraction. So if we go back to verse 26, verse 26. So, my dear king, in this way Bharat Maharaj was overwhelmed by uncontrollable desire, which was manifest in the form of the deer. Due to fruitive results of his past deeds, he fell down from mystic yoga, austerity and worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If it were not due to his past fruitive activities, how could he have been attracted to the deer after giving up association of his own son, family, considering them stumbling blocks on the path of spiritual life? How could he show such uncontrollable affection for deer? This was definitely deer due to his past karma. The king was so engrossed in petting and maintaining the deer that he fell down from spiritual activities. In due course of time, insurmountable death, which is compared to a venomous snake that enters the hole created by a mouse, situated itself before him. But yes, he became attracted to the deer because of his uncontrollable affection. But this karma was not the cause of his fall down. The cause of his fall down was not his karma. It was his purposeful neglect of spiritual life. So what are the two reasons why he got a body of a deer? Why did Krishna give him a body of a deer? First, to increase his desire for devotional service. Second, to rectify him, not to punish him, but to rectify him. Then in the verse 29 we have heard more causes of fall down. He spent time in frivolous talks, prajalpa, eating voraciously, Prabhupada says, more sleep, which will lead to sense gratification. It wasn't karma, although it appears to be karma. It was due to the low desire, Prabhupada says. Now, in the next chapter, he will become Jad Bharat. And he has one amazing quality. We will find out what that quality is in this chapter. It is said in the Garuda Purana, if you exchange the permanent for the temporary, you will lose the spiritual and the material both. But Bharat Maharaj exchanged his spiritual life for taking care of a deer. He had to suffer for this 2 more birds. That was a summary of the causes of his fall down and a warning for us. Any questions? Please. Yes. Mother Prema Manjari, please.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for all this nice explanation. I have one question. What is the difference between accidental fall down and this purposeful fall down due to negligence of devotional practice?
Ajamil, we will see, is occasional or accidental. He became attracted and that. But Bharat Maharaj was different. He was doing his sadhana and he gave his sadhana, up his sadhana. That's not accidental. That's purposeful, Prabhupada says. Ajamil did not do this purposeful. For him it was weakness of heart. But the line between is very fine sometimes. You have to see case by case. But if we willfully give up our practice, that is not occasional. Or accidental. No. And therefore he had to go 2 more lifetimes. And that's a specific warning Prabhupada gives here to us. Whatever happens, don't give up your spiritual life for other reasons, not material reasons, so-called in this world, and that. Because all these activities, what's the value of this in this world? I remember about 55 years ago, I was 8 years old. I was living in a little village near to Brussels, a suburb of Brussels. And everyone was speaking Flemish there. And it was a little village, 3,500 residents. Everyone knew everyone. But now we are 50 years later. If I go there, I don't know anyone. All the people I knew at that time are dead, gone. And all the problems that existed there at that time, and there were a few problems there 50 years ago, they are not existing anymore. Nobody speaks Flemish anymore. The big city is enlarged, and most people speak French now there. Most of the buildings are changed. So when I come back there, I think, did it really exist, or is it just a dream? This is just in this lifetime. All these problems 50 years ago, what's the use? Everything is gone. But spiritual life means connecting with the eternity, your eternal relationship with Krishna. All of the relationships will go very soon. That death wait for no man. Therefore, don't neglect your sadhana. It's your connection with Krishna. Don't give it up. That whatever happens. I hope this helps.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mother Koloka Vashini, please.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, I have two questions. Maharaj, one is if any devotee at the stage of anarth nivritti and by the mercy of other devotees, if he remember Krishna at the time of death, so will he take birth again to come up to the level of bhav or prem, or he will go back to Godhead at that stage only?
That depends on the level of his purification. So someone asked Prabhupada, if we are 90% pure, will Krishna accept us? And Prabhupada said yes. And then the devotee asked, and 85% Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada said yes, but he would not go lower than 80%. So we must have a high level of purification. And what happens then? That there are two possibilities. This is the situation of one with a long practice in Bhagavad Gita. So one takes birth in a family of a pure devotee, or highly advanced transcendentalist or rich man, and there is trained further in devotional service. And Prabhupada said I was in that case, and my spiritual master Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj was also in that case. Prabhupada said my father Mohande, he was a pure devotee, and also Bhaktivinoda Thakur was the father of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj. But there is also the example, and that we will hear later in the 10th Canto, the sages, when Lord Ram visits the sages in the Dandakaranya forest. The sages were very advanced. And he asked Lord Ram, we want to have a relationship with you in conjugal rasa. And Lord Ram said, in this incarnation, Eka Patni, I've only one consort, is Sita. So it's not possible with me, but I come back in 2 million years from you, at the end of Dwapara Yuga as Krishna. Then you can have that relationship. So these sages were practically pure, and they took birth in the womb of Nitya Siddhi Gopis, who came from the spiritual world. And they were trained up further by them. And finally, the first time they tried to go to the rasa dance, but they were not allowed. Then later, they danced with Krishna in the rasa dance and went back to the spiritual world. So it means in the next life, either you come in a family of pure devotees, or you take birth in Krishna's pastimes. And you are further trained up. But that's already considered a spiritual birth. So there's more to say on that, but this is the basic principle. So that was your first question. Yeah, the second one.
Yes, Maharaj, thank you so much. Maharaj, Sun God Vivaswan is the expansion of Lord Narayan. Like we were reading that Sun God is the expansion of Narayan.
Yeah, that is an expansion of Lord Narayan. That that's correct. That therefore those who get second initiation, Brahman initiation, they meditate on the first of the 7 mantras called the Gayatri mantra. And there's a meditation on Krishna in the sun, it's Narayan. So that's a meditation on that. That's not Narayan. It means the sun god is an expansion of Krishna in that sense. It represents the eyes of Krishna in the universal form also. And without the sun, nothing can exist in this material world. For it's the eye of Krishna. It is Krishna in the form of an expansion. Yes?
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Thank you.
Any further questions? Good. Yes. Mother Lila Madhuri, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Whereas while reading the purport, one purport in this chapter, in the Prabhupada says, those who have fallen down, they will take birth as monkeys and tortoise in the dam, and then they go to spiritual world directly.
Yeah.
But Bharat Maharaj, he has to take 2 more births. So, could you please explain it, Maharaj?
Yeah, of course, those who are in Vrindavan, it's a replica of the spiritual world, and if one does sinful activities there, and they are accidental, then still you have to take birth as a monkey or whatever, and go then back to the spiritual world. But yes, that's like the example of a punishment of Krishna. But it depends that Bharat Maharaj, he had to learn a lesson, and he was rectified. That he was, I don't know, that these monkeys and so on in Vrindavan, and these tortoise. I remember when I took bath in Radha Kund, at the hour of the appearance of Radha Kund, I could feel this tortoise. but yes, that is what Srila Prabhupada says, that but it depends probably on the consciousness of those. They have done this sinful activities in Vrindavan, but then they feel repentant. They feel repentant, and Krishna says, okay, but still you have to be punished, and then you can go back. And that is Krishna's arrangement for those in Vrindavan who are sincere and have an accidental fall down. But Bharat Maharaj was not accidental. He was not in Vrindavan. And Krishna wanted to rectify him, to show us what will happen if we give up our spiritual life. If we give up our spiritual life willingly, we have to learn the hard lesson. But still, Krishna is with us. He will give us the lesson and bring us back to the spiritual world through the lesson. So that's very encouraging. So the situations are quite different. There's Vrindavan. It's different, but it's also similar. Because they get the punishment, but it depends. They are doing these sinful activities and then they are feeling repentant. That Bharat Maharaj felt repentant after he got the body of a deer. So different situations that I think that's what I can say about it, that if we study the books more deeply, maybe more things may come out. That anything else?
Whereas one more question. So Prabhupada himself says that wherever Shri Radha Krishna deities are worshipped, it is nothing but Vrindavan. So
Yeah.
should one be there in Vrindavan when he leaves his body? Then only he will be getting the benefit of all his devotional service. Is it necessary, Maharaj?
The temples are embassies of the spiritual world. So a temple where they worship Radha Krishna deities, that's a Vrindavan mode. That I'm here in Radhadesh in Belgium, every morning I have the morning program here, and the altar is 3 down. In the middle you have Radha Gopinath, Lalita Vishaka, which is Vrindavan, without a doubt. And then you have Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, which is Jagannath Puri. And on the left side you have Gaunitai, Navadvip Mayapur. So you have 3 dams. But it's the spiritual world. The temples are like the spiritual world. So be always close to a temple or live in a temple. It's as good as in Vrindavan. Also, where Krishna's pure devotees are, it's as good as Vrindavan. Where Prabhupada was as good as Vrindavan. And he created everywhere Vrindavan. And that's the power of the pure devotee. It keeps Gadabrita, it keeps Krishna in the heart. Everywhere where he comes, he creates Vrindavan. But of course, if you can leave your body in Vrindavan in India, surrounded by devotees, very good. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, and then we will start chapter 9, and we will meet Bharat Maharaj again, but this time in the body of Jat Bharat. Hare Krishna. Sai Prabhupada.
Recording stopped.